I played 5 hours of Anthem in Stockholm, and while I see that it has potential, I also had fun playing it. I'm just not 100% convinced yet. Good to note before we begin is that I was invited by EA to go to this event and play the game in an early state. So the footage you see here is the alpha footage, will be polished up before the full game is out on February 22nd. I can also only show you one of the missions I played, but actually played way more than that and can talk about everything I experienced, just not show you all. So we'll include some trailer footage, switch it up, including the new trailer that actually dropped today as well. So let's get into it. If you enjoyed that, then a like would be super appreciated, and let's go. I was immediately interested in Anthem after seeing the E3 2017 trailer they showed during the Microsoft press conference, and that was mostly because of the flying that, yes, feels as good as it looks. Like, props to Bioware for the fluid gameplay that you can really easily get into. Like, I was jumping, flying and killing enemies within minutes, and it all really feels good. Got to note, of course, that I was playing on a PC, likely with a higher frame rate than that we will see on console. I think it's 30 locked on console. But I would imagine that it will feel good on the console as well. I was playing the Interceptor, as you see right here, a javelin who is more focused on melee attacks, but you will also of course be shooting a lot and using your abilities to, in my case, lower the armor of the enemies so I could deal more damage. But there are actually way more abilities that you can craft and find in the world, from defeating enemies for example. And how it works is that you select your loadouts before you start a mission, and then you will be using that for the whole mission. And then of course when you end the mission you can switch everything around and then go on a new mission with your newly selected loadouts. The world, as you see right here, is beautiful. I could only explore this forest with a ton of mountains and structures. And on this planet you will also find a ton of different environments to fight on. At the end of this mission we came into a building that has a completely different vibe than the more open areas. And that's why I also loved the tutorial of this game, because it immediately showed you a probably later level area, a more volcano style environment. But then later you came back into the forest and had to follow a mission that would then lead you through many beautiful locations. You then fly underwater, you end up inside a cave, and they all had different enemies that I then did not see again after that tutorial. I mean, I would imagine that they will throw them at you later on in the game, but it was interesting that we had this great mix of new encounters that I then did not see in the missions that followed. So yes, there's a promise of a world that has a lot to offer, and in the brand new Nvidia trailer we also see this robot spider in a very cool looking urban environment that I haven't seen yet. Not in my first hours. No, all my time was spent in this forest area, but when I spent more time there, it just felt more like a decor. You'll see wildlife like walking around, but they did not feel connected to the world. Like, it felt as if they were there because otherwise the world would feel empty. While for example in Horizon Zero Dawn you see these robots contribute to the world or walk in packs and stuff like that. And I'm afraid that in Anthem they are nothing more than things for you to kill. And this is especially clear in the free play option where you can free roam the map. So normally you select a mission and then have to go from point A to point B, but with free roam you can really just go anywhere you want. Kind of like the Destiny patrols compared to the regular missions on a planet. And I sadly cannot show you the gameplay of that yet, but let's hope they make this more exciting in the full game, because now some parts were empty, while in other parts of the map there were a ton of enemies that kept on spawning. Sometimes there was a public event with a big titan boss that you had to kill, but sometimes you could also be flying around for a very long time exploring the beautiful world, but with really nothing else there. So let's hope they still balance that part of the game and make it rewarding to go out and explore this awesome looking world. But Bioware is always known for the story parts of their games, and I was kind of surprised by the characters that you meet throughout the missions. The idea is that while you are a freelancer in one of these javelins out in the world, there's a cipher at the home base giving you instructions and updating you on the objective of the mission. But these characters can be different in different missions, and it adds a completely new dynamic to the conversations you are having while on that mission. It's also great that your character speaks. At the start of the game you pick a male or female voice, and it just adds more personality to the overall story. So while during the mission you have these interactions with your cipher, Still, most of the story moments take place in Fort Tarsus, kind of the home base that you go to at the end of every mission. You see some footage of that here from a recent livestream because I could not record anything inside this area myself. But yeah, you are in first person mode and you really go and meet these characters face to face and actually have some long dialogue with them. And there are multiple ways to respond to what they are saying. So while you have to talk to them to advance the story, I think that there are also a ton of optional dialogues that you can engage in if you want to learn more about the backstory of these characters, what role they have in the fort, and also talking to them gives you a better idea of how it is to live in this world. So that seems to be something you can do if you want. Earlier in the game, a pretty cool cinematic started playing as well when I talked to some people at the fort. Think of it as sort of a history lesson that showed you what happened and why all these people are now in Fort Tarsus. Some clips of that were shown in the Game Awards trailer that you see right here, but we also got sometimes a cutscene while playing through one of the missions. And again, the fact that your character speaks here makes it way more engaging to watch. So hopefully we can expect these cutscenes to continue throughout the whole story, because while the world is beautiful but feels empty, the universe and the characters had me interested to keep playing. So I think that even if you are a solo player like I will likely be playing through all the story missions alone, I think there's still something to enjoy here looking at the first few hours I played. Of course, hard to say if this will be the case after that as well, but if we're looking at a 20-hour long campaign of this sort, I think it will be pretty cool. But it is hard to say if the core gameplay will remain interesting over the course of the many hours that you can spend, of course, with Anthem. Like, even after playing for a few hours, the mission structure could feel repetitive at times, with scan that point, protect it while a lot of enemies come at you. At one point we had to save some prisoners, but nothing was really super exciting. And while there were different factions that you encounter in the first few missions, they hardly felt different. Maybe because there were mostly humanoid looking enemies with guns. While I expect there to be more variety in the full game, again, many enemies that I encountered in the tutorial never showed up later on. And we have this robot spider and another enemy that I haven't seen before in that Nvidia trailer. But yeah, apart from the look of these enemies you encounter in the early missions, there was really nothing that set them apart. So I hope that Bioware can make sure that they twist the gameplay enough to keep you invested. They do some interesting things with the verticality of the game and the flying mechanic. For example, at one point I had to find objects around the area that were all in high places and then secure them in a spot on the map. That was cool to do in the tutorial, mixed with killing a lot of enemies, but the later missions lacked that variety that I hope we see more of in future content. At this point, I'm just not convinced that if the newness of the game wears off, there's enough there to keep you coming back. It's clear that the loot plays a big part in the replayability of this game, and as we discussed in my recent video, like, there are really a ton of things to collect and there seems to be a lot of options to build your javelin as well, but the way you find loot is not well thought out or even exciting. So killing enemies gives you items, but you don't know what item until you exit the mission. So during a mission you will see green item, purple item for example, and then when you finish the mission and get all your XP as well, you have this whole window of all the things you collected during that mission. And in a game that is so heavily focused on getting loot, I would at least want to see what I get and also be able to immediately use it. But that is not possible in Anthem until you finish the mission and start a next mission. And okay, even if you can't use the item that drops right away, it would at least be cool to see what the item is that you got instead of having to scroll through a whole menu and look for cool gear items you collected. And because of this system, it is also a pain if you are looking for a specific item. So you go out into the free play, do many world activities, whatever, you get a lot of loot, but you don't know if you have that item that you are looking for until you go back to the fort. So if you want to go back to the fort every time you get a new item to see if it is the item that you want, it will be a ton of downtime with you loading to the fort, looking at the items, and then going back into the world. it could really kill the fun. I also did not see in my 5-hour play session what the purpose was of getting the best gear, like where are you working towards to. And yes, of course, we haven't seen everything the game has to offer, but there seems to be a focus on replaying the same content because all the missions have different difficulties that give you better loot. And I hope that there's a nice incentive, something you want to chase, like a sort of environment that you can only reach if you have that gear score, so if you have that legendary armor set. Or that you can only do this epic raid or epic boss fight if you have this specific loot. So I really hope that there's a carrot at the end of the stick, and I haven't seen that yet, because right now I'm not sure if the flying, that will likely be fun for a long time, and also the beautiful looking world is enough to keep you entertained after the pretty good looking story so far. There is a promise here for sure, something that I saw in the amazing looking E3 2017 gameplay, but from what I've played so far, it is just not fully realized yet. And sure, I was playing an alpha version of the game, and maybe everything comes together at the end, and I really hope that it will, because this game has a ton of potential. I really like this universe that they have created, and I really want to explore this also with my friends, but I really hope that there's enough there to explore, that there are enough rewards in place to keep me interested in this game. And right now, I just cannot say for certain if that will be the state of this game at launch, but I again really hope so, because it's a unique game, like it really plays like nothing else. So I really hope that they pull it off. I really want to follow this more, so subscribe to the channel for more Anthem coverage, of course, here. I got more gameplay coming your way from my Stockholm trip as well, so keep it locked for that. And like this video to support the channel, of course, as well. Check out my recent Anthem video if you haven't already, going in depth on the gear and loot and what the developers recently talked about, because it's likely deeper than you now think. For now, I will of course speak to you next time. I'm really curious to hear what you will think of the game. There will be ways to play the game. There's like an open beta early February as well, so that is nice, so you can check for yourself if this is something that you like. For now, I will of course speak to you next time, and goodbye.